Wine was in the kitchen humming tea softly as she set the table for dinner. It was one of those peaceful evenings, and she was preparing Jungkook's favorite dishes, hoping they could enjoy a quiet meal together. After weeks of him being unusually distant, the room smelled of warm spices, and she smiled as she checked the time, expecting him home soon. Suddenly, her phone rang. Breaking the peaceful silence, she reached for it, barely glanced at the unknown number flashing on the screen. Hello, she answered, distracted. The voice on the other end was rushed, filled with urgency. Ma'am, I am calling from the emergency services. Your husband Jungkook has been in a service accident. He's being taken to the hospital right now. It's surgical. The words hit her like a punch to me gut and legs wobbled and her eyes went in horror. What? No, this can't be happening. She gasped, her voice choked with disbelief. Her hand shook as they dropped the phone, not even bothering to end the call. Her mind was racing. Panic and fear seized her chest. Without thinking, she grabbed her car keys and dashed out the house. Tears blurred his vision as she streets every red light, making her heart pound harder. Please, Jungkook, be okay, please, she whispered, desperately wiping away the hot tears that streamed on her cheeks. When she reached the hospital, she practically jumped out of the car and ran inside. Jungkook, where is my husband, Jungkook? She cried out. The nurse at the front desk, her face pale and streaked with tears. The nurse checked her records, frowning slightly. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't have a Jean Jungkook listed here. Vine's face fell, confusion filling inside her. No, that's impossible. I got a call, an emergency call, saying he was in an accident and brought here. She insisted, her voice growing louder in desperation. Another nurse stopped in, trying to calm her down. Ma'am, maybe there been a misunderstanding. We have no patient by that name admitted tonight. Confused and frantic, Ryan dialed Jacob's number, but it went straight to voicemail. She dialed again. Nothing. Her hands were shaking and her breath hitched as anxiety tightened in her chest. Then she remembered something the caller had mentioned, the excellent location, a cafe they used to go to during their early dates. With a mixture of hope and dread, Ryan ran back to her car. The drive to the cafe felt like an eternity, each second ticking by with unbearable weight. The cafe was dimly lit with soft music playing in the background. As she parked outside, she caught a glimpse on the familiar figure through the window. Jungkook. He was sitting in a corner booth, laughing with someone. When her plunged as she saw who he was with, his ex-girlfriend. Jungkook's hand was casually resting over the Accessor's fingers intertwined. They looked too comfortable, too familiar. Time seemed to slow as Vian's breath hitched and anger mixed with agony burned in her chest. She pushed open the door, her steps shaky yet determined. The soft trim above the entrance went unnoticed. She stormed forward towards their table. Jungkook, her voice was raw, a mix of hurt and fury, echoing through the cafe. Jungkook's face went pale as he saw her, his hand shoot back from his ex. Guilt written all over his expression. Ryan, what are you doing here? He shuddered, catch of guard. Ryan's eyes were red with unshed tears as she glared at him. What am I doing here? What are you doing here? She shoot back, her voice shaking. I thought you were hurt. I thought you were dying in a hospital, and here you are laughing with her. His ex-girlfriend, equally shocked, glanced between them, sensing the tension. Jungkook, you told me you were separated, she murmured, confused. Separate? Swayan's voice cracked as the battle deepened. You lied to her too. How far you do plan to do? Jungkook, how much more would you lie? Jungkook stood up, reaching for her arms, but she pulled away, her eyes filled with hurt. Ryan, listen, I'm not what it looks like. He started, it was desperate. She let out of a bitter laugh, tears streaming down her face. Not what it looks like. You lied about being in an accident. You made me think you were fighting for your life just so you could sneak around and meet her. His ex looked horrified, taking a step back. An accident, Jungkook. You faked on accident to see me. She looked disgusted, realizing she has been part of his decide. Jungkook's eyes flickered with panic as he tried to grab Ayan's hand, but she slapped it away. Don't you dare touch me, she snapped, stepping back, her voice breaking. You have broken my trust. I was so scared for you, Jungkook. Do you have any idea what you have done to me? He looked at her, his expression crumbling. I'm sorry, I messed up. I did not mean for things to do this far, he said, his voice hollow with regret. One shook her head, backing away. I don't want to hear you excuses. We are done, Jungkook. I am done. Tears streamed on her face as she turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving Jungkook staring off from her. Her face a mixture of shock and despair. His ex, who had been silent all the time, looked at him with disgust and disbelief. When he returned home, her world shattered. She packed her belongings with trembling hands, her heart breaking more with every item she put into the suitcase. The house felt cold and empty, memories of their times together haunting every corner. Jacob tried to reach out over the following weeks, calling girl and texting, but she ignored every attempt. He came to their apartment once pleading at the door, but she remained firm, not opening it. His words meant nothing now. His ex had left him too, furious about being dragged into his lies. Jungkook was left alone, his life falling apart as the weight of his actions settled in. Loneliness became his punishment, his guilt a constant reminder of what he had lost. Months went by, and Vine slowly began to heal. She found comfort in her friends, rediscovered old habits, and started working on herself. Her smile returned brighter and more genius than ever before. One cold winter evening, she got a message Jungkook had been in a real accident. This time it was ironic, almost laughable, but Vine felt nothing as she read the words. She had moved on stronger and wiser. Jungkook was now just a memory, a painful lesson in her past. Jungkook's recovery was slow, and he faced it alone. He reached out to his ex for support, but she refused, angry and resentful. She had moved on to realizing she deserved better than someone who used manipulation to get what he wanted. Regret glanced at Jungkook every day. The line lesson the betrayed in himself had created was a punishment he could not escape. He had lost the only woman who truly loved him, and he knew it was all his fault. Vine, on the other hand, embraced her new life. She had no regret about leaving. She had given her heart to someone unworthy, but she learned to value herself more. Her days were filled with joy, laughter, and a new sense of freedom. One spring afternoon, as she sat in a cozy cafe with friends, she realized something. She was happy. Truly happy, the pain of the past was gone, replaced by a future full of possibilities. Jungkook's shadow had faded and she was finally free. The end.